Hello and welcome. This is Grand Prix Charlotte presented by StarCityGames.com. I am Ruben Gressler and I am joined by Patrick Sullivan.
Hello.
And Patrick, how many losses do you have on the weekend?
I have zero.
0 losses.
I have 0 losses.
Pretty nice.
Yeah, it's a good start.
Yeah, it's an excellent start. We're only barely halfway through the tournament, really.
I know. I'm trying to temper my enthusiasm, not only because it's just the correct thing to do.
Right.
You don't want to get ahead of yourself, but literally we haven't gone that far of the
exactly.
tournament.
This is only what, round 11?
This was 12.
This was 12. And so you're 12 of 19 plus top 8.
It's 17, right?
17? I don't know how many it is.
Yeah, it's
actually.
11 sealed, and then 6 draft.
Yeah, of 17.
So
you're
17.
Right. So there will be 20 total, assuming two players have to make the finals.
Yes.
And so we're barely over halfway through. But this was the first round of draft, and we watched your draft at home.
I'm sorry for anyone watching. It wasn't my best performance.
I think that at this level, everybody's draft goes a little bit wonky, particularly when there's only 5 archetypes really to go around between 8 players.
Sure.
But yeah, you did have a little bit of a weird time of it with the old Bomber Core Zarichi Tiger deck.
Yes. Yes. I have nothing more to add to that.
Sure.
Yes.
You have a red-white deck, which, for everybody knows that's sort of where you live, but you actually prefer black-white in draft, right?
Yeah, Orzhov is my #1 choice. I think it's the best guild and it's the one I'm most comfortable drafting. And Boros is a close second. So I always try to lead off with white cards, basically, whenever it's justifiable, and sort of adapt to where I think the table's at and slide into one or the other.
And that's what actually happened. You picked 2 very early Syndic of Tithes.
Sort of. I first picked a skin goblin out of a pack with nothing,
with
basically.
Nothing in it, sure.
And then second pick, there was Wojak Halberdier, 3/1 battalion, and green-red, deal 1 for each land, and a mugging. And I don't think the first 3 cards are appreciably better than better than mugging, so I'd rather take mugging to stay on course.
Absolutely.
And then got a 3rd pick and 4th pick Syndic, so at this point it looks like I'm Boros, but in my opinion, I basically
it could go any direction.
Yeah.
Then the next pick was an Executioner's Swing.
Right.
So it looked like you were sort of going to jump ship at that point.
Well, if there was a good Boros card in the pack, at that point I would have taken it because I have my mugging and my 2/1. I'm already sort of down that line. But there was no real Boros card of note there, and an Executioner Swing, which is a card that I actually value very highly for the archetype.
Yeah.
So at that point, I'm not really looking to jump ship. I'm just looking to remain adaptive. Like I said, if there was a good Boros card in the pack, I would have selected that. Even a Boros card worse than Executioner Swing, I would have selected. But since the pack had nothing for me Boros-wise, I wanted to remain flexible.
Absolutely, and that sort of filled out as Pack 1 continued. No real picks of note, just more solid cards.
I got some Boros filler and no real Orzhov. So going into the second pack, if I open up a very powerful Orzhov card, I'm still in a position where I can take it and go that way. But I was definitely going into the second pack expecting to draft Boros, which is why I opened with Sky Knight
I think you
Legionnaire.
picked a relatively late Bomber Core was Pack 1.
I think that was later in the draft because I was straining for playables, but I got a late pick, 2/2 white guy tap.
That's what
and,
it was.
an Act of
Court
Treason.
Street Denizen. That's
so those 2 cards, the Act of Treason and that card, are solid filler. So at that point, I'm still leaning towards Boros.
Now in Pack 2, you really sort of solidified where you were. Where early you picked Assemble the Legion, first pick, I think.
That was I got that in Pack 3.
Pack 2 I opened.
Pack 2 I opened
Legionnaire.
Sky Knight Legionnaire.
I have my note. I have Legion written down, and I confused myself. You had Sky Knight Legionnaire over the 3rd Syndic.
Yes, I think Sky Knight Legionnaire is just the most important card. At that point, I have no real incentives to stay Orzhov. I just had the Executioner Swing, and so I'm willing to just commit at that point and take Sky Knight Legionnaire.
And then that was definitely paid off because you had what looked like a very late Boros Charm.
Well, Boros Charm is a card that I don't value as highly as everyone or a lot of other people do. I certainly don't think it's better than Sky Knight Legionnaire or Wojak Halberdier or a card like that.
Which you got a Halberdier very late as well.
But I know other people value Boros Charm very highly, so even though I don't personally value that card, I took that as a pretty strong sign that, all right, Boros is probably open, maybe there's one other drafter at the table, but I feel like I'm in good shape going into Pack 3. I felt like Pack 3 would be deep for me.
Sure, and Pack 3 you opened Assemble the Legion.
And then got bricked for the rest of the draft.
Got bricked for the rest of the draft. So your first pick, Assemble the Legion. How do you feel about Assemble the Legion in general and specifically in your archetype?
I mean, it's not ideal. 5-mana spells aren't ideal in beatdown decks, but Assemble the Legion is better than any non-rare. So I would select it over Sky Knight Legionnaire, even though Sky Knight Legionnaire is a beatdown card. Because Assemble the Legion, as long as you're not dying in 1 or 2 turns is going to take the game over.
Now, it also pushed you into an archetype where you reasonably could have probably played 16 lands, depending on how many 2-drops you ended up with. This pushed you definitely in the 17 direction, and then later when you got, or you ended up with things like Tiger and lots of extort cards that might have even pushed you to 18.
Yeah, I'm 17 in the draft. I'm very rarely 16, not only because you have extort triggers, so you kind of need more mana in general, but Boros is very sensitive to having both colors of mana on turn 2. It's super important.
Yes.
Not only because of Wojek Halberdiers, but because you have 2-drops spread across both colors.
Yes.
And so you can get hands that are Mountain Cynic. So I'm loath to play 16 lands, even when my curve is especially low, unless I have a bunch of Guild Gates, because the color mana sensitivity of the archetype makes you want to play 17 anyway.
Now, you had an early, relatively early, Orzhov Guildgate. You could have theoretically splashed black, especially once you got past 1,000 lashes.
There was a 1,000 lashes, and there's a Kingpin's. There was a Kingpin's bet late. The Kingpin's bet almost made me go, but I had not had that much success in this format with 3-color decks, especially attacking 3-color decks.
Right, and given that you had Martial Glory to pick over the 1,000 lashes,
yeah.
It was.
I mean, obviously, 1,000 lashes is a much better card, and there's an argument to take it and splash it. But the only 3-color decks I've ever seen be successful are sort of slow grinder, either Orzhov Splash Blue or red, blue, green kind of creature control decks.
Right.
The white, black, red decks are very hard to execute correctly in Booster Draft because you're spread across 3 colors. You're very sensitive to drawing the right colors of mana early, whereas the control decks have a little more time to find their 3rd color.
Right.
And so it would take something very compelling for me to move out and try to play a 3rd color. And at that point in the draft, especially since I was already straining for creatures, not quality spells,
right,
I wasn't going to move into black for 1,000 lashes.
Sure. So the draft, it seems, went well, but not great.
I was surprised by how poorly Pack 3 went after how well Pack 2 went.
Right.
And I'm about 4 good cards short, but I do have a Semolation, I have a reasonable curve, so as long as I don't draw too many of the stinkers, I think I could probably cobble a 2-1 out of this one.
Excellent. Well, good luck, sir.
Thank you.
We're all rooting for you. We're going to toss to the Above the Curve special with Glenn Jones and a cavalcade of stars from Star City Games. So we'll be right back here at Grand Prix Charlotte.
SCG Live is